So we've covered the present tense and then the future tense. Now it's time to cover the very important past tense. This past tense is one of the biggest topics in learning Hindi. So let's see how we can look at these. And you always want to think about the past tense in terms of three exceptions. So we're going to start looking at these three exceptions. The past tense is riddled with exceptions. So the first exception is this way. Let's try to understand the grammar first, and then I'll explain the exception to you. Let's look at the word dekh, which means to see. And the way you conjugate this is you say main and dekh over here. Okay, main dekh. And then what are you going to do is you're going to put two parts. You're going to put the ne here and then a conjugation here. So remember, there are two parts here. Maine dekha. This means I saw. Okay, I know it's a little bit roundabout in Hindi, but this is how the Hindi listeners understand this. Maine dekha means I saw. Let's try here. How can you say I heard? I heard. It becomes main here, sun over here, and then you put ne and then the a part. Now this a part is very interesting. It is independent. It's independent of the gender. Usually in Hindi, we conjugate according to the gender, but here it's independent, and that's the first exception. Okay, I'm going to explain this in more detail. Maine suna means I heard. Now, if the word bol means speak, how can you say this? I spoke. Yes, I think you got it. Maine bola, or I said, or I spoke is maine bola. Remember, even if you're a woman or a man, you will use maine bola. It's independent of the gender. Maine bola. One last one. How can you say I ate? An extremely important activity. Maine kha. This is what you would think logically it is. But because you've got the two ahs here, in fact, if you have two vowels here, you will put a transition consonant here, which is khaya. Maine khaya. You can even say it sounds much easier to say this. It flows much better if you say khaya. So maine khaya means I ate. Maine khaya. Of course, you can try one more, which is bana, has the same a ending. So bana means to make. So how can you say I made? Maine banaya. Maine banaya. Okay, that means I made. All right, so dekh means to see. Now let's try to understand how we can say this. Maine dekha. I think you know this means I saw. Now we are still on the first exception. We are trying to understand how do we say maine dekha. Now the first part is when you say you saw a dog, for instance. I saw a dog. How would you say this? Maine ek kutta dekha. Right? This is the important part here. I saw a dog. In reality, in terms of English, if you want to understand, it could mean by me, one dog was seen. So you can even think about this if you want to map it, it means by me, one dog was seen. It's roughly, you can interpret it this way. Of course, this is the passive voice, but this is the structure, maine dekha, and you put the object here, kutta. Now, here's the most important thing. This actually depends on the gender and the number of kutta. So that's the most important part. Maine ek kutta dekha means I saw a dog. So let's try to say ek kutta becomes do kutte. That means two dogs. So how can you say I saw two dogs? This is how you'll say it. Maine do kutte. Right? That's clear to us. Maine do kutte. But, and this is the more important part, becomes maine do kutte dekhe. Here's the important thing. Maine do kutte dekhe. Here it's maine ek kutta dekha. Okay. Now, don't worry about this. In my experience, many learners have trouble with this. So you will first absorb it, then you might forget it for a while, then you come back to it and you keep revisiting this. This tense is agreeably quite challenging. So please understand that you need to know the gender of this. But if you don't know the gender of this, then you can default to the feminine. And let's take a few examples now. So let's say you want to say, I saw a cat. So earlier we had maine ek kutta dekha, but a cat, let's say a feminine cat, you say maine ek billi, and of course this becomes dekhi. Maine ek billi dekhi. Okay, not dekha, it's dekhi, but you can still get away by saying dekha because the other parts of the sentence are so strong that you've constructed. Dekha people will understand when they hear what you're intending to say, but it's always nice to make it to do it correctly. And so it's maine ek billi dekhi. So this is our first exception. Remember, this part is independent of who is saying it. So maine ek billi dekhi, anybody, a man or a woman, can say this. Okay, so therefore it's super easy now to construct these sentences once you know how to say these. So let's say you want to say Sita ne ek billi dekhi. It's totally independent of Sita. You're not going to conjugate to Sita, obviously. You're going to conjugate it to the billi, the cat. Okay, so this sentence works. You can of course put in Amit ne ek billi dekhi. You can say aapne ek billi dekhi, and of course you can say हमने एक बिल्ली देखी. All of these will work. It's almost like you split this part. It's independent of this idea here. मैंने, आपने, हमने, etc. Okay, so that's the first big exception. Now let's try to practice some sentences with this way. First of all, see how you can say Sita heard. So it's going to be Sita and sun, and then you're only going to put in ne and suna. Sita ne suno. Okay, one more. Let's say you want to say Radha ate. Radha ate. So the word is kha. Radha ne kha ya. Of course, it defaults to the masculine here because you haven't specified what she ate. So let's say you want to say Radha ne ek samosa khaya. And as you can guess, the a here signifies as the masculine form. Radha ne ek samosa khaya, right? But if you say Radha ate a roti, so of course you'll replace this with roti, and this becomes Radha ne ek roti khaya? No. Take a guess, please. What would it be? It agrees to the roti. It becomes Radha ne ek roti khai. Radha ne ek roti khai. All right, let's try it once more. Let's say you have dek, which is see. How can you say, I saw one girl? Okay, I saw one girl. You know the word for girl is ladki. It's feminine, obviously. And then one more. Let's say you want to say, I saw two boys. Of course, this is going to be do ladke. Now, see how you can construct these sentences and post your answers in the comments. So this will be very helpful for you. Now, the second exception. Remember, there are three big exceptions in the past tense. The second exception is how do you say she saw. Maine dekha, you already know is I saw. Of course, you would guess it's wo ne dekha, but actually it's not wo ne dekha. It becomes usne dekha. Usne dekha. So that means she saw. Okay, so remember this part is us because intuitively you can think about it like this. By her, it was seen. So in a way, you can think it does make sense still by using us over here. Usne dekha means she saw. Okay, usne dekha. All right. So with that, of course, you can also say, as you know, he and she are indeterminate here. So usne dekha can also mean he saw or she saw. Okay, so now you try two of these. Let's say you want to say read, which means pad. So how can you say she read? It'll become usne padha. And of course, this also means he read. So usne padha means he read. Okay, now see if you can construct a few more sentences. Let's say you want to say she ate rice, and rice is masculine, and the word for rice is chaval. Chaval, it's masculine. So see if you can try this one. Try this one. The word for make or prepare is bana, and dosa, the word, is masculine. So see how you can say this and post your answers, or you can even ask me what these are in the comments below. All right, so let's move on now. The final topic is usne, and then this means he or she saw, and then when you say they saw, it becomes un ne dekha is what you might think because you know us becomes un, but still we have an exception and it becomes unho ne. Unho ne. There's a slight nasalization here as usual, but we can skip this because this topic is very huge. So let's just focus on the most important parts. Unho ne dekha. Okay, so this is how you'll say this. All right, so just to recap what we've done, we've seen maine dekha, usne dekha, unhone, and then the others are easy. You can say aapne dekha, you can say हमने देखा, as well over here. Okay, so these are the three important parts. So to recap, मैंने एक कुत्ता देखा. That means I saw one dog. But if you make it मैंने दो कुत्ते, I saw two dogs, it becomes मैंने दो कुत्ते देखे. That's the first exception. The conjugation, this part depends on kutte. That's the first part. The second part is if you wanna conjugate it to he or she or them, it becomes उसने. उसने दो कुत्ते देखे or उन्होंने दो कुत्ते देखे. That's the second exception. Now, in the next video, we're gonna check the third exception of how you will construct the past tense for certain important verbs. So let's move on there now.